there are a couple of very interesting legal issues here. One is standing. Why is that issue? Let's start with that. What's the issue around standing? Because it doesn't speak to anything underlying about mifepristone or abortion necessarily. It's about whether this case is valid.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Ali. And before answering that, I just want to disclose that I am unabashedly against this lawsuit. And indeed, my law partner, Jess Ellsworth, argued the case brilliantly today. And indeed, one great thing about the oral argument today is all the advocates were women, all three of them, Solicitor General Elizabeth Perloger, as well as Erin Hawley, arguing for the religious doctors. Now, there are two issues in the case. One is this doctrine of standing that you're asking about, and that essentially asks who can come into federal court and file a federal lawsuit challenging something. And the second is the merits. Did the FDA ignore science and safety when it expanded access to mifepristone in the last few years? Much of the argument today, as you highlighted, was about standing. And basically, Erin Hawley said there are these 7 doctors who have conscientious objections, and it might be the case that at some point, one of the doctor's patients will take mifepristone, and it might be that that might cause a side effect, like a headache, and that might cause that person to go to the emergency room. And if that person goes to the emergency room, it might be that that person will need to be treated. And if that treatment is necessary, it might be that one of these 7 doctors is the person treating it. That's a ridiculous chain of causation. It doesn't work in any other aspect of the law, and I don't think it worked in the Supreme Court today. Justices on both the left and right wings of the court just expressed massive skepticism about this. And so I think that's where the case will be decided.
To the second part, the issue of judges and science. There was an exchange between Jess Ellsworth, whom you mentioned, and Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson on this and its relevance. So I just want to play for our viewers this exchange, which begins, because we don't have video of its audio, begins with Justice Jackson.
Do you have concerns about judges parsing medical and scientific studies?
Yes, Your Honor. I think we have significant concerns about that. You have a district court that, among other things, relied on one study that was an analysis of anonymous blog posts. You have another set of studies that he relied on that were not in the administrative record and would never be because they post-date the FDA decisions here. They have since been retracted for lack of scientific rigor and for misleading presentations of data. Those sorts of errors can infect judicial analyses precisely because judges are not, they are not experts in statistics, they are not experts in the methodology used for scientific studies, for clinical trials.
Neil, this is not just relevant and hugely relevant to this particular case. It's relevant to a lot of cases that are making it to the Supreme Court these days. The idea that agencies of specialists, headed by people who are approved by the United States Senate, are not to be trusted with the things that fall into their expertise, but that should be adjudicated either in the courts or determined by Congress. That in itself could lead to a major mess in the way government runs. It would be unprecedented in the modern developed world. But there are a lot of people who think that should be the case, that there shouldn't be agencies and there shouldn't be experts, and courts and Congress should make these decisions on scientific and technical matters.
That's almost all exactly right, Ali. You know, cannot be the case that you can just, as an individual doctor, afraid that one of your patients is going to have a side effect, go and challenge the thing and then go to a judge and say, you know, stop this from being sold nationwide or prescribed nationwide. This case didn't belong in the United States Supreme Court. It was a dead loser every day of every week. It was just because of some rather extreme rulings by some judges that forced this case to go up to the Supreme Court. And as Ms. Ellsworth said, you know, relying on anonymous stuff, blog posts, retracted studies. I mean, this was not the way federal judges, ordinarily behave. And so it was dismaying. And I think the most important worry about a case like this is that if it did go forward, then it's not, if it's mifepristone today, it could be, who knows what drug tomorrow. That is not the way to run a government. It's not a way to run a society.
Now, we didn't cherry pick those quotes that we showed you at the beginning of this segment. There did seem to be broad skepticism across the political spectrum from a number of the justices about both the merits of the case and the process by which it was brought to the Supreme Court and the standing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, Ollie, I've seen more than 500 cases there at the court, and you know, normally it's difficult to tell what the justices are going to do. Sometimes it's pretty easy. Today felt like one of those pretty easy ones. Obviously, anything can happen, but I did feel like today there was a wide consensus on both sides of the court, as well as the middle of the court, that this challenge had to fail, that it just didn't have merit, and that the people trying to raise it just didn't have a claim to walk into federal court in the first place. So I expect a rather swift decision that may be 8-1 or 9-0 against these challengers to the mifepristone drug. And, you know, I think that the good upshot is that mifepristone will be safe and available to be used by women the way the FDA has prescribed it to be used, and this challenge is going nowhere.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.